Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here is take a look at one of the I would say, the most overused and misunderstood distracting thing that you can do at the early stages of the design process when you're creating renders. And that's putting glass. Because it tears apart what you're trying to communicate as the mass of the building, the simplicity of the architectural form, and it starts distracting you with things where your mind's trying to tell you that it's a real piece of architecture at that stage rather than an abstract artwork trying to communicate something outside of the realm of architectural materiality and stuff like that. So the next thing I'm going to do here is go into my materials. Is this the right one? That's not the right one. This is, and this is. And I'm going to bring in a glass material. So let's go to that MXM gallery. Search for glass. At this stage, it doesn't really matter which glass you choose. Try to find something that's just regular glass. I guess frosted isn't too bad. But oh, you know what? They don't really have regular glass, do they? Let's do... Yeah, let's just take industrial glass, I guess. Okay, and then take that industrial glass material and put it on the glazing layer. And then we'll do another draft render and we'll take a look at it. Oh, there's industrial glass. So there's something you guys need to know about glass, right? And just the nature of rendering glass already, because of its technical limitations, limits you from doing it on a massing material, and that's because it's not going to compute properly if you just have a single pane material, meaning that the material has no thickness. Okay, that's a very important distinction. So we're gonna have to render this twice. So let's do a real quick render with it like this when my surfaces are just single surface materials, and then we'll do another one right after that. So I'll run this one. And then for the sake of time, I'm going to jump back into my model and start modifying it while that runs to show you the other condition as well. So I need to ungroup this. And you guys don't really have to do this with me. I just want you to kind of see and understand what its limitations are. But I need to take each of these surfaces and extrude them. Whoops. Let's just go, I don't know how small this model is, but let's do 1/8 of an inch. Oh, it needs to be the right material, the right layer. Extrude surface, 1/8 of an inch. Extrude surface, 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to do these front panes for now, and you'll kind of see. Oh, they're not solid. Extrude surface, 1/8, and take this one, extrude surface, and 1/8. Okay, so that's my alternate. I took every single one of those front-facing panes of glass, and I said extrude surface, and made it 1/8 of an inch thick to simulate the thickness of having a glass pane at that material. And so you'll see the differences in how they render here in just a moment. So let me run another draft render here on that one. And I'll pause for a little bit while this gets initialized and runs for a few minutes, and then you'll be able to see why it's no good. Okay, so here's sort of the more developed version. It's still a little bit glitchy. It's not perfect. Actually, most of the standard glass materials really aren't that fantastic. You sort of have to build your own for them to be really good, or those textured ones are actually pretty decent. But anyway, this is what you get. you get this kind of glass box effect, and simply put, it just doesn't look good, right? You're distracted by trying to make this a real architectural thing, okay? But when you, and this is actually the better version of the two. The worst version of the two is this, which is if you leave them as flat planes, they pretty much render as black reflective surfaces, okay? So that's already not conducive to doing a massing type model when you're working through that process for your class. Okay, so just bear in mind that it's probably a lot more efficient for you to go through and model something that looks like this, which is, in my opinion, profoundly more attractive as an abstract study of the architectural form. Yeah?
Question. Now, when I do folding, I usually just, when you have like a massing model, I usually don't even have fill, you just have the folds. So no glass, nothing. Is that bad then?
You mean actually just turning that layer off?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably okay. I mean, it's up to you what you're trying to communicate.
Something like that.
Well, it's a matter of personal preference. If you're just studying the archetype and you're looking at like, you know, your rapid prototyping models and like where and when and how you can fold this thing, then yeah, sure, that's probably fine. But if you're trying to communicate the actual environment or what is the definition of the space, this is probably a little more appropriate. Because what if these surfaces didn't actually happen here? You know, what if they actually happened back there, right? And then all that space is really open. That's an important distinction that you would need it for.
Okay.
But if you're talking like week one, and your professor's like, yeah, folding, and you're like, okay, let me look at how I can fold this thing, then yeah, of course, you're not going to have it. All right. I sort of just like tutorialized over the last hour a bunch of different things. But I want to stop and ask if you have any questions about that before we sort of pull back up into some full-scale renders, and then I start to give you an assignment for this. No? Okay. Hang on a moment then. We'll get going again.